Now this session is essentially going to be first a brief roundup on what the strategy or the broader strategy would be for Indian economy. We need to understand how do we go about Indian economy specifically for UPSC Civil Services Examination 2027. You have to first understand what is the nature of this examination, how many topics are there to be covered, how do you go about those topics, what would be the correct strategy. Now since I take Indian economy, I'll be discussing with you the strategy for Indian economy. Welcome to the classes of Pinnacle 2027 batch. My name is Ranchan Kaul and I will be taking the Indian economy section for Pinnacle 2027. Now this session is essentially going to be first a brief roundup on what the strategy or the broader strategy would be for Indian economy. And thereafter we are going to start with first topic of Indian economy, which will be money and money supply. Now firstly, we need to understand how do we go about Indian economy specifically for UPSC Civil Services Examination 2027. Now this exam, essentially speaking, has three stages. The first stage is the preliminary test stage. The second stage is that of the mains examination. And the third stage is what we call the personality test. For you to be able to clear this exam pretty much in the first go, you have to first understand what is the nature of this examination, how many topics are there to be covered, how do you go about those topics, what would be the correct strategy. Now since I take Indian economy, I'll be discussing with you the strategy for Indian economy. Now, there are three different stages of this examination: prelims test, mains examination, and personality test. Each of these stages of this examination are fundamentally different. The first stage is a necessary evil because the marks of prelims test are not going to be accounted for, but you will have to clear the prelims examination if you want to write your mains examination as well as then eventually appear for the personality test. Prelims examination by nature is an objective type examination, while mains examination is a subjective examination. Now, the difference between prelims and mains is not just restricted to one being an objective type test and the other one being a subjective type test. The difference is also in terms of the syllabus prescribed for prelims as well as for mains examination when it comes to the Indian economy. The difference here is that for prelims, the clarity over syllabus is just absent. What they basically speak of is that general issues concerning Indian economy. So there is no clarity over what kind of topics will they be asking for, what kind of questions are they going to ask you from which topics, what would be your sources, how do you go about clearing this examination. While when you look at the mains examination, the syllabus for mains examination is listed in as much detail as is particularly possible. So here the syllabus is very, very well detailed. Now, how do you prepare for an examination, especially the prelims examination, when there is no clarity over the syllabus itself? Here you have to take a reference, and the reference for you is going to be your previous year's question papers. When you look at your previous year's question papers, you will see that there are some topics which have been covered time and time again. And then from these topics, there are different types of questions. Some questions are questions which are based on applied understanding, while some questions are questions which are based pretty much on information alone. When it comes to the mains examination, the syllabus is very, very well detailed. Now we'll discuss what will be the syllabus or the topics to be covered for Indian economy, especially from a prelims perspective, and then we'll take it over to the mains perspective right away. Let us talk about the syllabus for this examination from prelims perspective, especially from the Indian economy section. Now, first things first, Indian economy will be about all issues pertaining to the economy, which is one that of India. For you to be really good at Indian economy, you will first have to understand the language of the subject, which is one that of economics. Economics is the language, while Indian economy is the reality. Indian economy will be about detailed events concerning economic phenomenon which are happening in India. But for you to be able to make sense of the issues pertaining to the Indian economy, you will first have to learn the language of the subject, which is what we is concerned in macro as well as microeconomics. Now, in economics, there are two aspects generally, microeconomics as well as macroeconomics. In this exam, what we have noticed is that there are very few questions that they have asked from microeconomics section. There may be one or the other odd questions in the last 10 to 15 odd years, right? But from macroeconomics, there are many questions that you will find, they find space in your prelims examination especially. So what you can comfortably do is that we will not cover all of microeconomics. What we will do is in the initial few classes, I will discuss with you all the topics, all the concepts of microeconomics which are absolutely essential for you. That will take us not more than 2 to 3 odd classes. From there onwards, we are going to move to the macroeconomics section before taking up the Indian economy part of it. Now, in macroeconomics, there will be some major macroeconomic indicators that we will have to speak about. The first major macroeconomic indicator will be one that of national income. Here you will be introduced to the idea and the notion of this concept called gross domestic product. You will understand what growth means. You will understand how growth is different from development and what does development basically mean. So the first major macroeconomic indicator that you should be aware of is GDP, GNP and national income. This is a part of macroeconomics. The other important aspect from macroeconomics that we'll have to cover will be my favorite topic, which is one that of money and monetary policy. Now, in money, we will have to understand what the definition of money is, what are the various types of money. We will have to also understand the evolution of the monetary system. And from there onwards, we will have to talk about a very vital concept, which is one that of money supply, and the role of the central bank, which is the RBI in our case, in terms of influencing either the quantum of money supply or the direction of flow of what we call money supply, which forms the part of monetary policy. So first is national income, the second is money and monetary policy. In addition, in the macroeconomics aspect, you will also be required to study about what is called public finance management. Now, public finance management essentially is about three things. First is taxation, which is the major source for government revenue. Where does government make most of its money from, which is taxation. Followed by taxation, we will also have to discuss the expenditure of the government. Both of them together will be forming a part of an important exercise, which is one that of the budget. Now, following this, the third thing we'll have to talk about will be debt. More specifically, public debt. This is the third important topic in macroeconomics, which is one that of public finance management, decisions of the government concerning taxation, decisions of the government concerning its expenditure, and if the expenditure exceeds the taxation or receipts of the government generally, then there is a situation of deficit which has to be financed through debt. When the government takes this debt, we are going to call it public debt. And how does the Indian government manage its public debt? That is the third important topic that we'll have to be covering in macroeconomics. Following public finance management, we will also have to discuss what is called the external sector. In external sector, we will have to talk about some very, very important concepts, especially from the perspective of what is called forex management or foreign exchange management. The second will be forex reserve management, followed by the third important aspect, which is determination of exchange rates, followed by trade and investment concerning the Indian economy, the policies with respect to trade, the policies with respect to investment. Whenever you are discussing trade, we will definitely have to talk about some very, very important international organizations, which is one that of IMF, World Bank, as well as the World Trade Organization. This will be the understanding part of the external sector. Once we have covered each of these topics, which is one that of national income, one that of money and monetary policy, one that of public finance management, which is basically about budgeting, taxation, expenditure, and public debt management, followed by the external sector, our basic fundamental concepts of economics or macroeconomics will be absolutely clear. And once we have understood the fundamental building blocks of economics as a subject, thereafter we are going to be taking the understanding and applying it to the events and the issues which the Indian economy faces. Herein, the syllabus for your mains examination has been absolutely crystal clear way mein has been detailed and listed in the notification itself. There are 9 major topics in the Indian economy concerning the main syllabus. The first topic will be one that of growth, inclusive growth, and associated with growth and inclusive growth, we will have to take up planning and mobilization of resources. So growth, inclusive growth, planning, mobilization of resources is crystal clear, maintained. It is there in the notification as well. So we will have to prepare around this topic more specifically. Following growth and inclusive growth, we will have to take up the most important aspect of the Indian economy, especially from the mains point of view, which is one that of agriculture in India. Each year you will find 3 to 4 questions in your mains examination directly coming from agriculture, which is a subtopic as has been mentioned in your syllabus itself. In agriculture, we will have to be talking about the associated chapters and topics which have been discussed in your syllabus itself. One is the cropping patterns in India. What were the reasons behind those cropping patterns? More specifically, what we'll be discussing here will be the Green Revolution as to how the Green Revolution has had a significant impact over the cropping patterns in India. Not just the cropping pattern, the most important aspect of Indian agriculture will be one that of agricultural marketing. When you say agricultural marketing, what does it mean? It means all those business activities right from farming till the farm produce reaches your food plate. Everything included will be there in the agricultural marketing aspect of your syllabus. We broadly divide agricultural marketing into 2 aspects. One will be what is called input marketing, and the other one would be what is called output marketing. As part of input marketing, we will have to be discussing a very important concept, which is that of farm subsidies. And as part of output marketing, we will have to discuss 2 very, very important things. One will be the marketing support that the government offers to farm produce in India. More specifically, here we'll be discussing the agricultural produce marketing legislations in the country. Thereafter, we will also be discussing the price policy or the price support system of the government of India when it comes to Indian agriculture. Herein, the most common topic that you would have heard of is one that of MSP. There are other allied topics too, which we'll be covering as a part of price support when we discuss output marketing in agriculture in India. Now, in agriculture, there are some other topics too, which have been discussed, which have been mentioned in your syllabus per se. Those topics will be one that of land reforms, and the other is one that of the food processing sector in India. Thereafter, we'll have to discuss the economics of animal rearing and the role of technology in agriculture in India. All of them are a part of agriculture as a topic, either directly or indirectly. So this is the one topic as part of your mains examination, which is the most detailed, and consequently every year you'll find that there will be 3 to 4 questions that they ask straight from this topic, which is one that of Indian agriculture, one of the most important topics. Now, following agriculture, the other important topics from the mains perspective would include changes in industrial policy and its impact on growth. We will also have to discuss what is called the external sector and some important international organizations. Changes in industrial policy is a very, very important topic. This is going to be about India's industrial policy resolution starting from 1948 till your new industrial policy 1991, and thereafter we have had different manufacturing policies which we'll have to cover as a part of this topic. Herein, we will also discuss what is called the liberalization, privatization and globalization reforms. That means reforms of the Indian economy, more specifically the 1991 reforms, shall also have to be covered as a part of your mains syllabus itself. There are many topics as a part of your main syllabus, like I said, starting from growth, issues of inclusive growth, planning, mobilization of resources. Herein, you will find some important considerations, important macroeconomic indicators around which you will find questions. For example, indicators around poverty, indicators around inequality, indicators around unemployment. Then there will be straight up questions from planning process, how we have moved away from the planning process, what is this Niti Aayog, what does Niti Aayog do, how does this economy mobilize various resources in pursuit of its economic objectives. Not just that, we will also have to discuss what do you mean by inclusive growth, what does India have to do to make sure that our growth is inclusive of many stakeholders in the country. We'll be discussing as a part of the first topic, followed by the most important aspect of your main syllabus, which is that of Indian agriculture. Thereafter, we'll have to talk about manufacturing in India, changes in industrial policy, their impact on growth, the liberalization, privatization, globalization reforms. Thereafter, we'll also have to talk about some allied topics, which is one that of the external sector, right, and some important international organizations as a part of your mains syllabus. Now, generally speaking, these are all the topics as have been mentioned in your mains syllabus. There is not a lot of clarity over what is asked in the prelims examination. So how do we go about that? The first thing is we take reference to previous year's question papers and we see what are the various topics, what are the various kinds of questions that they've been asking since the last 10 to 15 odd years. What we have seen is that in the prelims examination, broadly speaking, there will be 2 types of questions. The first question will be one that of, like I said, basic applied economics, which is to say you will have to discuss the concepts mostly of macroeconomics And we will not have to only mug up them. We will not have to only remember their definitions. We will also have to understand each of these concepts as well as be able to apply these concepts to different scenarios, because there will be questions which may be straight in the form of definitions, but more often than not, 90% of your questions will be questions based on your understanding of these underlying concepts. So from here, basic applied economics, then there will be some questions which is based over information. Now, like I said, as part of a prelims examination, what will be the basic applied economic concepts? First is the concept of the gross national income, GDP, GNP. Then there is a concept, one that of money, money supply, and the role of the central monetary authority, which is one that of RBI. Thereafter, the underlying concepts will be one that of, like I said, public finance management. Here we will have to talk about budget, we'll have to talk about the expenditure policy of the government, the taxation policy of the government, and how does the government finance its deficits when its expenditure increases its income. So public finance management followed by the external sector. Herein, the underlying concepts will be one that of what do we mean by forex management, and essentially forex management is about the exchange rates. What are the various types of mechanisms that help us determine the exchange rates for currencies? Thereafter, we'll also have to talk about forex reserves management. Thereafter, we have to talk about something which is called the balance of payments. Thereafter, we will have to talk about some international organizations, like I said, IMF, the World Bank, and the WTO, followed by some questions on trade and investment. Now, previously, UPSC did not ask many questions or many fact-based questions on India's share of trade in the world trade in general, but of late, they have been asking questions rather statistical, rather factual on figures around trade and investment. So we'll have to discuss this part as well. These will be your building blocks. Many applied questions from the building blocks of economics will be directly asked in your prelims examination. What about the questions based on information when it comes to the prelims? Now in prelims, broadly speaking, there will be some additions as have happened over the last few years. Apart from these building blocks, there used to be one of the most favorite topics of UPSC when it comes to the prelims examination, which is one that of banking. Now, in the last few years, what we have seen is that UPSC has moved away from asking questions related to banking in the country. We have seen that there are new questions which are coming from the broader topic, which is one that of financial markets and financial institutions. Of late, financial institutions, you will find questions not related to only banks. You will also have to talk about banks, non-banking financial companies, as well as some developmental finance institutions. As part of financial markets, you will definitely have to know about the two financial markets, which is the money market as well as the capital market. And more specifically, money market and capital market, what you need to know here will be the instruments of the money market and its functioning, instruments of the capital market and its functioning, because of late what we have seen is there has been a change in trend. The questions previously used to be precisely around banking. Now there are more questions around financial markets and the instruments of financial markets, especially across these two categories of financial markets, which is one that of money and capital markets. So you will have to prepare all types of financial institutions, including banks. You will also have to talk about other types of financial markets, the money market as well as the capital markets. Now, when you look at each of these topics, you will find that there will be some common understanding based questions, but there will also be awareness based questions. For example, when we speak about the concept of national income, it is a fundamental concept. There is not a lot to do of current affairs in this specific topic. Unless they have changed the methodology of computation of GDP, unless we have switched to newer types of estimation methodologies. Otherwise, this does not make a lot of buzz in current affairs. So you don't have to worry about current affairs in this part. However, you will have to always be aware of what has been happening when it comes to the monetary policy of the economy. So RBI, its functioning, or RBI and the various committees that it may be setting up precisely to influence money supply in the economy, that has to be absolutely prepared. Now, apart from this, as part of your public finance management, there are questions which come straight from schemes, as have been mentioned in the budgetary exercise as well. There are questions with respect to the expenditure policy. There are questions based on current affairs which come from the taxation aspect of the public finance management, as well as debt management aspect of the government. So here you will have to not just build your understanding, but you will also have to supplement your learning from what is happening in the Indian economy before you write your examination. When it comes to the external sector, there are applied questions on basic fundamental concepts, which is one that of determination of exchange rates. What do we mean by fixed exchange rates, market exchange rates, how are exchange rates determined, what are forex reserves, why are they maintained, right? In what form are they maintained? You will have to discuss each of those. What do we mean by balance of payments? What are the various components of balance of payments? All of these are building blocks that you will have to first understand, and thereafter you will have to also see what has been happening in the news related to each of these aspects. For example, in the last few years, we have had a significant amount of addition to our forex reserves. Why is the RBI adding to our forex reserves? Right? In what format are these forex reserves being managed and maintained in the Indian economy? Most of those events you will find being discussed in the newspapers. So not only do you have to build your understanding of the basic concepts, you will also have to supplement that learning from events as have been happening in the current affairs. Thereafter, you move to international organizations, questions based on trade and investment, questions based on financial markets, financial institutions. There is very little element of conceptual understanding when it comes to financial markets and financial institutions. Lots of questions based on general awareness around these terms. So for prelims examination, this is broadly what has to be covered, and the sources for these sections will include what I called essential reading material. Your essential reading material is the material that you just cannot skip. This will include your class notes. This will also include your supplementary classroom material as is provided by OnlyIAS. Not just this, we will also have to add here the most important aspect, which is one that of newspapers. So ideally speaking, you should be covering two newspapers, which is the Hindu and the Indian Express. Herein, what you can do is you can pick at least one of the two, the Hindu and Indian Express. Some people find the language of Hindu to be a little more troublesome, so they can, in terms of coverage, also cover events from Indian Express, any one of these two, and then supplement this with a monthly magazine. Not just this, as part of your essential reading material, you will also be required to read the economic survey. You will also be required to know about the important aspects of the budget as may have happened in the year that you're going to write your examination. So your essential reading material is your classroom notes, your supplementary classroom material, your newspapers, economic survey, as well as budget. Now, in terms of books, is there any book in the market that precisely covers Indian economy from A to Z? Absolutely not. There are some books which are absolutely essential for you to read. That book is only and only one, which is your NCERT Class 12 Fundamentals of Macroeconomics. The only book that you should read cover to cover is Class 12th NCERT Fundamentals of Macroeconomics and nothing else. Why am I saying that? I'm saying that because precisely all other related concepts which may not be there in macroeconomics, we are going to discuss in the class itself. Now this exam, when it comes to prelims examination, of course, will have some questions which are basic and applied, but this exam mostly is an issue-driven exam. This exam, you'll find more than 90% questions coming from current event and current issues. Now, current events are going to happen from today onwards for you guys. So there is no book which can predict what will happen in the Indian economy in the next 1 or 2 odd years. So there can be no book which covers everything related to the Indian economy that is required for you to crack this examination. The only book that you have to never leave any sight of is NCERT Class 12 Fundamentals of Macroeconomics. Apart from this, you should keep some books as part of your supplementary reading material. But I would request you to not rely on books which are there meant for university exams. The difference being, in university exams, the approach is the same as used to happen when you were doing your probably your schooling. In your schools, you had textbooks. At the end of those textbooks, you had some questions. Although in university books, you don't find that there are some questions at the end of each chapter. But you pretty much almost always know that if there is any question which will be asked in the examination, it is going to stem from that book itself. Now, this examination, particularly the civil services examination, is not a book-driven examination. Like I said, many questions, in fact, more than 90% questions will be questions based on issues. So what is usually tested is your understanding of those issues, your analysis of those issues, which is to say your arguments in favor of those issues, against those issues, your evaluation of those issues, and your opinion around those issues. Now, since like I said, issues are going to unfold day 1 onwards, there is no book which can predict about them in advance and have it mentioned in itself. So never rely on a singular source. What may happen is sometimes you may feel that there are some topics that you just could not understand, or some topics where you found that it's a little hard for you to grasp them, or you would want more information, more knowledge on those. For those topics, you can look for some supplementary reading material. For example, one book that I normally recommend is this book called Mishra and Puri. But remember, these books, you don't have to read them cover to cover. This is what I call your reference reading material. When I say reference reading material, what it means is that for certain topics where you are unsure that how do I cover this, or maybe I did not understand it fully, or I think my notes are not good enough, I think I need to add some more content to my knowledge base, only for those topics do you have to pick up a reference reading material specifically for those topics. Don't read these books cover to cover, because that's not going to help. You have very, very limited time to prepare for Indian economy. You have other subjects to cover also. So don't drown yourself into a sea of multiple resources. Have only a few resources. Know which are your essential resources. No compromise on any of these. For all other supplementary material, only pick it up when you are unsure of the topic at hand, or when you feel that you require more content, but it was not delivered in the classes. Right? Something like that. Only in those events should you pick up any supplementary reading material. But for topics where you feel that, this has not been discussed in class in great detail, you can always and always reach out to me. Right? You can always ask me any questions. In fact, if you want some more reading on any topics, you can always reach out to me. I have my own Telegram channel, right? I can give you some supplementary reading material also. It'll be good for you to go through me before you pick up any book, because I will tell you and I'll try to save your time. I'll tell you exactly what to read, if at all you feel the need to read those things. Now, this is your essential reading material. Ideally speaking, your strategy should be that you prepare for the mains examination, because the syllabus is much more detailed, right? In course of your preparation for mains, you're automatically preparing for your prelims examination also. Just that the kind of questions will be different. Objective type questions will take a very specific type of skill. Objective type questions is going to also work on, you have to learn the skill of elimination. You'll have to understand some questions where you apply common sense. There are many ways of navigating an objective type test, which we will discuss as the classes progress. For each topic, what I'll do is from the beginning of the topic, I'm going to tell you what are we going to cover in the classes that will follow. I'm going to tell you in advance that what are the various subtopics of a broad topic that we will be discussing. Now, for each of those subtopics, we will be picking up previous year's question papers also once the topic is completed. After the topic is completed, like I said, for each of those topics, if there has been any previous year's questions, we will definitely discuss them in the class as well. Apart from that, if you have any doubts, at the end of each class, you can always come back to me and ask me your doubts. You don't have to worry there at all. In fact, we will also try to have some revision modules starting every class. So if there is class 1 and class 2, before the class 2 begins, I'm always going to take some time to recap what was done or what was studied in the first class itself. So you don't have to worry. The only thing I will require from you is one, discipline, that attend these classes regularly. Second, what I'll require from you is absolute concentration and absolute focus. Don't run your mind here and there. Try to understand the concept. The third thing which I'll require from you is trust in my ability to help you clear this examination, at least the Indian economy aspect of it. Please trust me, I'm going to navigate you through the entire process. I'm going to help you build a good understanding of how an economy functions. And then we will apply that understanding to the various topics which have been mentioned in the mains examination from the Indian economy perspective. So 3 things which I'm going to require for you, I'm going to repeat once again. First is discipline, attend classes regularly. Second is focus, absolute concentration. Don't hover around, don't run your mind here and there when we are discussing things in class. Please focus on those topics themselves. If you have any doubts, I will give you the time to ask me doubts as well. I will not move to another topic once I have cleared your doubt completely. And the third thing which I'll require is your trust in me. You just have to stay and believe in the process. By the end of this process, you will discover that you have become very, very good at attempting the questions based on Indian economy. Pause here. So we have understood what is really required in this examination. Like I said, 3 things we'll have to take an account of. 1, we will not be able to understand any event from the newspapers unless we know the language of the subject, which is called economics. Economics is not a part of your syllabus, although there are questions from economics directly which may appear in the prelims examination. But from the mains perspective, economics is not what is typically asked. What I would like to sum it up in is that there will be some aspects of what we call concepts. Are concepts ready? Are concepts necessary for you? Absolutely they are. So concepts and their understanding is necessary for you to make sense of issues. Issues you're going to find in newspapers and your monthly magazines. But before you build an understanding of these issues, you will have to first learn the language of the subject, which is what is called macroeconomics in this case. So we will start with concepts and understanding of how a general economy functions. What do we mean by a general economy? How does a general economy function? And once we have understood how a general economy functions, thereafter we are going to apply these concepts and understanding specifically to the Indian economy. More specifically, we will be interested in the issues facing the Indian economy as part of our mains syllabus. So this hierarchy of understanding is absolutely necessary for you. Do not jump straight into this without understanding this part. Now this part directly gets asked in your prelims examination. Plus, you will also be required to have awareness of issues for your prelims examination. So prelims examination fundamentally will have two types of questions: applied questions on economic concepts plus questions based on awareness of issues facing the Indian economy. In mains, you will only and only be required to know about the issues facing Indian economy and only those issues which have been mentioned in your syllabus. Not a word beyond that. In fact, if you go back and find out various questions as were asked from the mains perspective, you will find for each topic mentioned in your syllabus, there will be a corresponding question. They don't ask many questions on underlying concepts as part of your mains examination. If they have asked 100 questions so far, maybe 10 of those questions were questions based on basic concepts and understanding. 90 of those 100 questions were essentially questions on issues facing the Indian economy. But like I said, for you to understand newspapers, for you to understand news events around the Indian economy, you will not be able to make a lot of or create a lot of value for yourself unless you have a basic understanding of some underlying macroeconomic concepts. We will begin our first class with my favorite topic as part of macroeconomics, which is one that of money and monetary policy. This will be our first class, money and monetary policy. Before anything, let me tell you what are the various subtopics as a part of this chapter that we will be studying. We will first be studying the definition of what is meant by money. What do we mean by money? We will then follow it up with a definition as well as a classification of the various types of money. So what is money? What are the various types of money? We will understand through a discussion on what is called the evolution of monetary systems or evolution of money specifically. So we will start with what is meant by money. We will discuss the evolution of money or monetary systems. Therein, we will also focus on what are the various types of money. After we are done with these, then we are going to pick up a very important concept, which is one that of money supply. What is meant by money supply? What is its definition? What are the various monetary aggregates? Which is, what do we mean by M0? What is M1? What is M2? What is M3? What is M4? All of these aggregates, monetary aggregates, we will have to discuss in detail. Thereafter, we will have to understand the importance of money supply. Why is it that we study about money supply? Why is it important? And then we will pick up with another topic, which is the role of any economy's central monetary authority in respect of money supply. Who influences money supply and how does that body influence that money supply? The answer is the central monetary authority of every economy. In some cases, we call the central monetary authority a central bank also. In our case, we call our central bank the Reserve Bank of India. So what we'll have to discuss in here is, firstly, what is the function and roles of the Reserve Bank of India. There are many functions of the Reserve Bank of India. Herein, we will be discussing some important functions which are directly related to the concept of money and money supply. We will discuss all functions as the need appears. For example, we will discuss the public debt management function of RBI when we discuss the relevant topic, which is that of budget, right? We will pick up on forex management part of the RBI's roles when we discuss the external sector. Here we will be discussing briefly what are the various functions of RBI And more specifically, here we'll be discussing one specific function of RBI, which is the price stability function, which the RBI performs by tampering with the money supply. That aspect is what is called monetary policy. So after we have a decent understanding of what the various functions and roles of RBI are, thereafter we will be discussing what do we mean by a monetary policy and how does RBI in India conduct its monetary policy. Here we will also be discussing what is called the various instruments or the various tools of monetary policy that the RBI has at its disposal. These instruments and tools will be qualitative in nature and quantitative in nature. We'll discuss what are the various tools available at disposal of the RBI with which it influences the money supply and why does it do that. Thereafter, we will be picking up on what is called the types of monetary policy. Types of monetary policy, herein where we will be talking about what do we mean by an expansionary monetary policy and what do we mean by a contractionary monetary policy, and if there are any other names for these types of policies. For example, what do we mean by a cheap money regime? What do we mean by a dear money regime? We will understand all of those things as a part of this specific topic, which is one that of money and money supply. I hope you have made a note of each of these topics. These are your topics that we'll be covering. Starting with the definition, then types of money. This we will understand by discussing the evolution of money. Thereafter, we will be discussing money supply. What do we mean by money supply? What are the various monetary aggregates? What do we mean by M0, M1, M2, M3 and M4? What do we mean by the importance of money supply? How does money supply get influenced? Which is the body, right? The role of RBI, the various functions of RBI. More specifically, the important function of RBI, which is one that of price stability, which is what concerns the monetary policy of India. What do we mean by monetary policy? What tools does RBI have at its disposal to influence the monetary policy? What do we mean by qualitative tools? What do we mean by quantitative tools? What are direct instruments, indirect instruments? How does the RBI tweak the money supply? Thereafter, we will be discussing the various types of monetary policies. Broadly speaking, two types, which is expansionary and contractionary monetary policies and their role and importance. What are the various circumstances in which these types of policies are followed? Let us begin our understanding with the evolution of money. Firstly, what do we mean by money? What exactly is this thing called money? I would request all of you all to just forget about everything that you know about money right now. Unlearn everything. We will start from the very basics and build your understanding therein. Now we know that in any economy, there are people and people have their needs and their wants. For example, I live in the Indian economy. I have built a house and I have tried to build a wall around this house. My need is one that of keeping my house and my belongings and my family members safe. That is my need. To fulfill my need, I think I would require a gate. I would require an iron gate so that my house, my belongings, my family members are generally kept safe. This is my need, and what I want right now is a iron gate. But you also would know that do we make these iron gates? Do I make this iron gate? Absolutely not. There is a different agent in every economy who is going to be making these iron gates for me. We are going to call them an ironsmith. The task of an ironsmith is to make many artifacts, many things from iron itself, and this guy is going to make an iron gate. Now he knows that much like me, there are many people who would want to keep their house and their belongings safe. And many people would want to install an iron gate to keep their house, their belongings and their family members safe. That means he knows that there is going to be a demand for this iron gate because many people would want it. What he therefore does is that he sets up a business where he sources his raw material, which is iron. And over this raw material, he applies his energy and his brain and converts this iron into this product, which is called an iron gate. Now, an iron gate is needed by me. An iron gate is wanted by me. Why? Because I have a need for safety. I want to keep my house safe. In economics, we will classify these two types of persons into two different economic agents. One economic agent we are going to call a producer. The more common term for producer is also firms. Producers are one economic agent. The other economic agent, common people who have needs and wants which they want to be fulfilled, we will call them consumers. From this example, what we know is that in the economy, when you look at the various people involved in this economy, basis their role in the economy, we can classify them into multiple agents. One economic agent is what we call consumers. Consumers have needs and wants. The other economic agent is called producers. Producers build those things which will satisfy the needs and wants of consumers. That means, what does a producer do? In our example, do you find that iron gates are readily or automatically available in nature? No, they are not. If you want to keep your house safe, maybe you could have lifted a big block of stone and put it right there where you have a gap in your wall. That will also safeguard your house. But you know how inconvenient it would be every time you want to exit your house. You'll have to push that stone wall, that big piece of stone away so that you move out, and then you'll have to push it back so that you keep your house safe. It is highly inconvenient. Many people would want an iron gate. Why? Because it's far more convenient. That means this iron gate is of use, or in economics, we say that this iron gate holds some utility. For who? For the economic agents which are consumers. That means consumers have needs and wants. And consumers know that there are some things which will satisfy these needs and wants, or those things have a need satisfying potential. This is what we call the utility of things. So consumers want to realize the utility of iron gates. In the same economy, there is a different economic agent in the form of a producer, or what we also call firms. Firms or producers are who? Who are these as economic agents? Firms and producers are those economic agents which will source raw materials as are available in the nature, and they will transform these raw materials into these items which hold utility for the consumers. That means an economy has definitely two types of agents. One agent is a consumer, and the other agent is a producer. Consumer has needs and wants. Producer transforms natural resources into objects that fulfill these needs and wants. Now, do you think that the ironsmith who took so much pain in one sourcing iron, applied his brain thinking of the design of an iron gate and making it to the size, He used other raw materials also and other inputs also. He converted that iron into an iron gate. Do you think the producer is going to give that iron gate to you for free? The correct answer is absolutely not. Why did he waste his resources? Why did he waste his energy if he had to give that item to you for free? That means consumers have needs and wants which shall be fulfilled by items made by producers. But consumers are not going to get these items for free. If consumers want these items from producers, quite obviously, consumers will also have to give something back to the producers, which the producers think holds value for them. This is what we call an exchange process. And this exchange process facilitates a very important activity in the economy, wherein consumers who want to buy things which will be of use to them are going to go to producers. They are going to ask of these producers to give them these things which hold use for them. And in exchange, consumers are going to give something of value to the producers for the producers giving away these items to them. This exchange process is inherently human. This exchange process is only and only seen in human societies. Have you ever seen animals interact with each other where animals exchange one item with another animal in exchange for other items? You would have seen quite obviously that a cat, when it trains its litter, when it trains its kitten, a cat sources food and gives it to its young, you can say, children. But do the children give something back to the cat? Absolutely not. That's not an exchange process. That's a process where the mother cat is feeding the children. Across the animal kingdom, it's only in humans that this exchange process is very, very common. Many humans have needs and wants. These needs and wants will be satisfied not by natural resources directly. Of course, some needs and wants can be fulfilled by natural resources directly. But some needs and wants will be fulfilled by some items which are made from transformation of natural resources into those items. The task of transforming natural resources into items that are going to fulfill these needs and wants, or items that hold utility, this task is called production. Production is the transformation of natural resources into things that hold utility for the consumers. The task of eventually realizing this utility of the items so made is called consumption. In any economy, there are two important tasks which are happening at the same point in time. There is a production of goods and services which holds utility for the consumers, and then there is another function which is that of consumption, that is the realization of utility by the consumers. But what facilitates an exchange process, what facilitates an exchange between the producers and the consumers is exactly what we call money. You would have seen that if you need a pen, you are going to go to a stationery, you are going to ask of them what kind of a pen you require, and if they have them, the stationery owner is going to tell you whether he has that pen or not, and he is also going to quote you a price. That means if you want to get that pen, you will get that pen only when you pay something to this particular person. You are going to pay, let's say you want to buy a Reynolds Jetter, the pen comes for rupees 20. So you are going to get that pen only when you pay rupees 20 to this shop owner. This process is called an exchange process in a market scenario. There is a producer, then there is a consumer. The producers and consumers, they interact with each other and facilitate what is called an exchange process. Through this exchange process, the needs and wants of consumers get fulfilled because producers also get something of value to them. What is money? Money is that commodity which fulfills this exchange process. That is the task of money. Anything that fulfills this exchange process is going to be called money. Now, what we know of money is something that we need to further enhance. We are all born in monetized economies. So we all know that money means what? Money means these currency notes and money means these coins. But were these currency notes and these coins always in place? Was the society born with these currency notes and these coins? The answer is no. And the answer as to how did we come about the present system where we use paper currencies and where we use coins, the answer is going to come from another important subtopic, which is one that of evolution of money. The notes that we see, these coins that we see, were they always in place? No. But was this exchange process always in place? Yes. So how did we arrive at the present monetary systems where we have paper currencies and where we have coins? The answer lies in the evolution of money. So long before we had paper currency and we had metallic coins as we see them, there was a function performed under a system. This system used to be called the barter system. Now, what is a barter system? A barter system is a system where commodities are exchanged for other commodities. That means that if I am a farmer and I, let's say, require a shoe, I produce wheat and I want a shoe because of course my feet get hurt if I don't wear them. There is a shoemaker in this economy. I as a farmer go to this shoemaker and I ask of him, do you have a shoe in my size? And the person says yes. Now the person is going to give me the shoe fit to my size only when I give to this shoemaker something that the shoemaker thinks is valuable for him. Under barter system, there is no concept of money. Under barter system, goods are exchanged for other goods, or services are exchanged for other goods, or services are exchanged for other services. What does it mean? It's a very, very simple thing. I as a farmer go to the shoemaker. I ask of him, do you have the shoe fit to my size? He says yes. I ask of him to give me the shoe. But the shoemaker is going to ask of me, what is it that you have that I may want? And I will tell him that I'm a wheat farmer. Maybe you require some wheat because you want to feed yourself. If the shoemaker requires wheat, then I am going to give him wheat in exchange for him giving me a shoe. He gives me a shoe in exchange of me giving him wheat. This means that commodities are being exchanged for each other. He gave me a shoe because I gave him wheat. This system is what is called a barter system. Under a barter system, commodities are exchanged with each other. And there is no concept of money. Now, commodities being exchanged with each other under a barter system, this had a few problems. The barter system was fundamentally flawed. There were some important problems emerging out of this system. Of course, the system continued in place for many, many centuries. But there were some inherent problems. What were those problems? The first problem is that I, as a farmer, go to the shoemaker and I ask of him, do you have a shoe fit to my size? And the shoemaker says yes. So I ask of him to give me the shoe. The shoemaker asks me, what is it that you are going to give me if I give you the shoe? And I tell him, I have wheat to offer. What if the shoemaker already has a lot of wheat to satiate his feeding requirements? Is the transaction going to go through? Is he going to give me shoe in exchange for wheat which he already has? Quite obviously the answer is no. That means in a barter system, for any transaction to get fulfilled, there has to be what is called a double coincidence of wants. That means what I want, he has, and what he wants, I have. Only then is this transaction going to go through. Only then am I going to get this shoe if he also wants wheat. If he does not want wheat, and if he wants something else, for example, he may ask of me to get some gold for him. If that's what he wants, I will have to source gold from somewhere. That means I, as a farmer, will have to first go to a goldsmith and I ask of him to please give me some gold. The goldsmith is going to ask of me once again, what is it that you are going to give me if I give you the gold? And I tell him I'm a wheat farmer, I'm going to give you wheat. What if the goldsmith also does not require that wheat? What if he is so well fed? What if he has many farms of his own? He does not need that wheat. Is he going to give me gold in exchange? Clearly not. The idea here is, unless there is a double coincidence of wants, that means what I want the other person has and what he wants I have. Unless there is a double coincidence of wants, there is going to be no transaction. That's a big problem under the barter system. The second big problem under the barter system is the problem of establishing value. Now, what is this problem of establishing value? Think of it very simply. I produce wheat and the wheat is measured in kgs. He produces shoes and the shoes are measured in numbers. How much should one shoe cost in terms of wheat? That is the problem of valuation. That means in the barter system, how much wheat is he going to ask for a shoe in exchange for a shoe is going to be considered the problem of valuation. Do you think in barter systems valuation could not be done? Of course, in barter systems, valuation could be done. This is how barter systems continued to function over a huge period of time. I will give you an example. Now consider the same example where I am the wheat farmer and this guy is a shoemaker. I produced 100 kgs of wheat. Right? This was my total production. Now, out of this 100 kgs of wheat, I required 20 kgs for my own survival. So I keep this 20 kg aside. This is for my own survival, which is what is in economics also called sustenance. The remaining wheat, 100 minus 20 kgs, that means this 80 kg is something extra. And I can give either entirely this 80 kg or a part of this 80 kg in exchange for other things that I will require. This part is called surplus and this part is called sustenance. That means I am a farmer and I'm also a producer of wheat. Of all my total production, one part is going to go towards my subsistence, my survival. The remaining part I can trade with other people in exchange for other things that I may require. Now I have 80 kgs extra. This guy has made 10 shoes. Now when I ask of him, how much are you going to give me one pair of shoes for? And he's going to tell me, oh, what do you have to give me? Oh, what can you offer me? I'm going to tell him I can only offer you wheat. This guy said, okay, I need some wheat. So you know what? Please give me 10 kgs of wheat for one pair of shoes. That means the valuation of one pair of shoes is 10 kgs of wheat. Now, under the barter system, of course, you can arrive at the value of a commodity in the form of another commodity. So what is the problem? Right? I said that barter system has a problem when it comes to valuation. What really is the problem? The problem is very simple. Now think of it this way. I am a farmer and if I need shoes, I will have to give him 10 kgs of wheat. The shoes are not the only thing that I will want. I will want sugar also. I will want, let's say, milk. I will want a t-shirt. I will want probably medicines. when I feel sick, there are many things that I will want. Each of those things their value will have to be expressed in the form of wheat. So I will have to remember the value of many items in the form of wheat. For this shoemaker, he required wheat, that's why this transaction happened. But the shoemaker also requires t-shirts. The shoemaker also requires, you can say, sugar. Unless he is diabetic. The shoemaker also requires milk unless he is lactose intolerant. The shoemaker is also going to require medicines. Now the prices of each of these commodities will have to be expressed in terms of shoes only, because this is the only thing that the shoemaker can sell. That means that in this kind of an economy, the prices of multiple commodities will be expressed in the form of multiple other commodities. That means each person will have to remember the exchange rate for many commodities at one point in time. For example, if a milkman comes to the shoemaker, how much milk should he ask for in exchange for one shoe? If a herder comes to the shoemaker, how many goats can he ask for in return for one shoe? If the farmer came to me, how much wheat would I ask for in terms of one shoe? The value of one of my commodities has to be expressed in the form of many commodities, and all of these exchange rates or all of these prices expressed in the form of commodities I will have to remember. That is the problem of convenience. It is a highly inconvenient system when you have to express the value of commodities in the form of other commodities. This was the second big problem of the barter system. What was the third big problem of the barter system? The third big problem of the barter system was that some items are perishable. Perishability. That's a big problem. Why is that a big problem? Now think of me. Imagine that I'm the shoemaker now. My produce is shoes. So if those shoes don't sell themselves in a week, if they don't sell themselves in a month, even if they don't sell themselves in a year, I will still have those shoes, because the shoes are not going to get spoiled on their own, not in 1 year at least. If nobody is using them, they are not going to get spoiled. In fact, if nobody uses those shoes, maybe these shoes can last me for 10 years without any problems. But imagine that I'm a wheat farmer. My produce is wheat. So wheat, do you think it's going to last me a month? Yes. Do you think it's going to last me 6 months? Yes, unless there is a problem of rains, or like water has flown into my house and somehow all the wheat gets spoiled. If I manage to keep it dry in a safe space, the wheat is going to survive. It's going to survive 6 months. It's going to survive a year. Do you think it's going to survive me 5 years? That is a big problem. That means when the shoemaker gets wheat in exchange for his produce, which is shoes, shoes are not perishable, but wheat is. That means, can he hold the value of wheat for very long? No. He will have to use it up. He will have to consume all of this wheat before it gets rotten. That means value cannot be stored in case of perishable items for very long. These items will have to be consumed. This is the third big problem of what is called a barter system, which is perishability. Many items are perishable in nature. That means many items are not going to help me store value for a long period of time. For example, milk is perishable. For example, food items are perishable, right? Meat is perishable. All of these perishable commodities are going to die down. Some of them in a couple of days, some of them in a couple of months, some of them in a couple of years. That means I cannot hold this value with me for a long period of time, which is a big problem of the barter system. The last problem of the barter system is also what is called divisibility. What is the problem of divisibility? Now imagine that I am the shoemaker and a goat herder has come to me. The goat herder has to climb many mountains because goats are hardy animals and they go to different distances. Sometimes he has to climb up really rocky mountains up to the top and come back. His shoes are not torn. He requires new shoes. And the only thing he can offer in exchange for shoes is goats. If the shoemaker thinks that he requires 2 goats for 1 pair of shoes, right? Or if the shoemaker realizes that, I require, let's say not 2, let me just say I require somewhere around, for 1 pair of shoes, you will have to give me somewhere like, let's say for 1 की जगह लिखता हूं मैं 10. For 10 pairs of shoes, I may require 8 goats. I want you to buy all of my shoes, right? You will have to give me 8 goats. But this guy is going to tell him that I require only 1 pair of shoes. I don't require 10 pairs of shoes. How much is the value of 1 pair of shoes expressed in the form of goats? If 10 pairs of shoes are going to be bought for 8 goats, that means 1 pair of shoes is going to be bought for 0.8 goats. That means less than 1 goat. Now you should understand that a zinda goat, a goat which is living, will have 1 use value, and a goat which is 0.8 of a goat, that means if you cut that goat into half, it will be dead. The same dead goat will not have the same value as a live goat. This is the problem of divisibility. Some of the commodities which are exchanged are just not divisible, or their value is not the same when you divide them. A goat which is alive has 1 value. A goat which is dead is mutton. It does not have the same value. These were the problems of the barter system. Double coincidence of wants, the problems of valuation, which is to say the problems of expressing the value of one commodity in the form of many commodities, having to remember so many exchange rates. The third is the problem of perishability. Some items will not be able to hold value for me for very, very long. And then the last problem was one that of divisibility. Some items are just not divisible, or if they are divisible, once divided, they will not be of the same value when they were not divided. For example, living items, goats. Half a goat is not the same as 1 full goat. You should know why. Now, these problems had to be resolved. And the commodity that resolved these problems is exactly what we call money. Money resolved each of these problems. Money solved for what is called the double coincidence of wants. We required some item which everybody will accept in exchange for their item of produce. That is the first function of money. First function of money is that it solves for what is called the double coincidence of wants. How? By being universally accepted. I want a commodity which nobody is going to deny me if I want something of value from them. If I go to a shoemaker, if I have a commodity that the shoemaker is going to say no to, then it doesn't work out for me. But if I have a commodity that a shoemaker is not going to deny, a goldsmith is not going to deny, a t-shirt manufacturer is not going to deny, right? If I have that one particular commodity which everybody will accept as a means of payment, my problem of double coincidence of wants is solved. The second problem is one that of valuation. If I have that one commodity across which the value of all other commodities can be computed, then my problem for valuation is solved. I will not have to remember the value of many commodities expressed across many commodities. If there is a common commodity that helps me arrive at the value of every item. For example, in today's day and age, you have, if you think of the Indian economy, the price of every commodity is expressed in the form of rupees. You don't have to remember the price of a bike in the form of shoes. You don't have to remember the price of a bike in the form of shares. You don't have to remember the price of a bike in form of oil. You don't have to remember none of that. You just have to remember the price of a bike expressed in terms of rupees. Rupee is that one commodity which will help us arrive at the prices for many commodities. This function is called the unit of account function. The unit of account function is going to solve for me the problem of valuation. If everybody expresses the value of their produce in the form of just one commodity, that solves for me the problem of valuation. The third problem is one that of perishability and divisibility. The third problem is solved if I have one commodity which is divisible and if I have one commodity which is also not perishable. That means if I have discovered one commodity which is going to hold value for me for a very long period of time because it is not perishable, then it solves for me the problem of perishability also. And the same item should be able to be easily divided. That means if I can have denominations of the same commodity, then each of the problems of the barter system are solved for. The economies required one common commodity which would be universally accepted as a means of payment, one commodity in whose form the prices of every other commodity will be expressed, that one common commodity which is also going to hold value for me across time. It is going to be valuable today, it is going to be valuable 10 days from now, it is going to be valuable a year from now, it is going to be valuable 10 years from now, even 100 years from now, because it is non-perishable. That commodity is what is called money. Which is to say, what was money? Money was that one common commodity which solved for all the problems of the barter system. Money is a universally accepted medium of exchange. Money is something which is also a great unit of account. It is very simple and easy for us to express the value of other commodities in the form of money. Money is also something that holds value for people across time. That one commodity is called money. So in barter system, there is no commonly accepted medium of exchange. Hence there is no concept of money. After the barter system, we came to kind of economies which were based on money, and these were the functions of money. So what is money? Money is something which is generally or commonly accepted as a means of payment and hence solves these three functions. These three are called the functions of money, and money is a commodity, a common commodity, which people will generally accept as a means of payment. That is what is defined as money. How did we come about the barter system and how did we go down to money itself? So from the barter system, the next kind of economy was based on what is called commodity money. That means societies wanted to solve all of those problems. How did societies solve all of those problems? Firstly, by picking some common commodities, right, to solve for those problems. These common commodities were sand, these were salt, sometimes these were even animals for that matter. So what societies decided to do was that they would pick a common commodity. It could be sand, it could be stone, it could be grains of salt, or it could be animals. And they are going to tell everybody that, you know what, you will have to accept these commodities in exchange for what you produce. That means these economies definitely solved for the first problem, which is the double coincidence of wants. Now there is no double coincidence of wants. There is no requirement for you to have exactly what I want and for me to have exactly what you want. The society has accepted, imagine, animals as money or cows as money. Or the societies, let's say, have accepted salt as money. That means so long as I have salt, I can use this salt to buy every other commodity because that's what the society has now decided upon. The society has accepted salt as the universal medium of exchange. Now, having done that, in these economies, the first problem, which is one that of double coincidence of wants, this was solved. this was solved. Because now you don't have to have double coincidence of wants. Now there is one commodity which is generally accepted as a means of exchange. But there were two other problems that persisted, right? The other problem that persisted was the problem of perishability and also the problem of divisibility. The first two problems are solved. Now there is no double coincidence of wants plus the problem of valuation. Since the society has accepted salt as money, the price of every other commodity will be expressed in the form of, let's say, grams of salt, right? You have solved for the first two problems, but the next two problems, which is one that of perishability and then that of divisibility, they will pertain. For example, societies which accepted animals as money, there will always be a problem of divisibility. Like I said, a live goat or a goat which is living is very differently valuable than a goat which is dead. You cannot divide animals like that. So the problem of divisibility persisted. The other problem was one that of perishability. For example, in those societies where salt was accepted as money, salt is also perishable. I mean, it's hygroscopic, it is going to absorb lots of water and it is going to get ruined. Of course, it's going to get ruined after a long period of time, but it's not going to stay with you forever. That's a problem. For example, meat will also be perishable. So commodity money solved for the first two problems, but could not solve for perishability as well as for divisibility. So to solve for the remaining two problems also, economies moved from commodity money to what is called metallic money. Now, once the societies moved to metallic money, all the problems were solved. For example, since metals, this metal could be zinc, this metal could be copper, this metal could be gold, or this metal could be even silver for that matter. Now these metals have been accepted as universal medium of exchange or media of exchange. So the problem of double coincidence of wants is solved. Since they have been accepted as money, quite obviously the value of every other commodity will be expressed, for example, in the form of grams of gold. Right, so you have solved the second problem also, which is one that of valuation or expressing the value of the commodities in the form of money. You have solved for that. The third problem was that of perishability. Now metals are far more long lasting than grains of salt would be. Metals are far more long lasting than milk. Metals are far more long lasting than dead animals also. So quite obviously the problem of perishability was also solved. So was the problem of divisibility. The problem of divisibility was solved by having what is called denominations. For example, imagine that we have a hypothetical economy and we call this hypothetical economy only Nagar. Only Nagar has accepted Ranchan as currency. Its currency is going to be called Ranchan. And one Ranchan is 10 grams of gold. So if the price of one commodity is, let's say, 1000 grams of gold, then 1000 grams of gold will mean that you will require 100 ranchans. This is the problem of denomination. That you can express the value of this commodity or you can express the value of this money across multiple denominations. For example, you have a rupee 1 ka note, you have a rupee 5 note, you have rupee 10 ka note, you have rupee 20 ka note, you have rupee 50, 200, 100, 500, even 2000 for that matter. These are various denominations. So this money is also divisible. If you don't have rupees, then you will have paisa. 100 paisa equals 1 rupee. The problem of divisibility gets solved by having something which is called denominations. So metallic money was the one which essentially solved all the problems of the barter system. And in metallic money, the most commonly accepted money or the most commonly accepted metal which became money was gold. Why was it that gold became the most commonly accepted money in metallic money formats? The reason is very, very simple. One, that gold is very, very scarce. And the second reason that gold became money compared to other metals also had their time, but gold was the one eventually over which society started relying upon. The other reason is that gold was not just scarce, gold was predictably scarce. Now, what does it mean? It means something extremely simple. What is predictable scarcity? Think of an economy which has copper as money, and this economy is called Only Nagar, and Only Nagar has its currency called Ranchan. 1 Ranchan equals 5 grams of copper. That means 1 Ranchan coin, a coin which is 5 grams of copper, has a stamp that says 1 Ranchan. 1 Ranchan means 5 grams of copper. Now everybody in this economy expresses the value of other items in the form of Ranchans. Now this economy is also going to grow. People are going to add to the population. This economy is going to trade with other economies too. And there will be a requirement of Ranchans as trade grows or as population grows. Everybody is going to require Ranchans because they want to buy other items. The problem with other metals was that with other metals, the scarcity was not predictable. What does it mean? It means that consider in this case copper. Copper in this economy is being used as money because that's what the coins in this economy are made of. But copper, there is an alternate use of copper too. This alternate use of copper is an industrial use. For example, copper is used to make utensils. Copper is also used to make wires. There are firms in this economy which will also require copper. Those firms which make utensils. There are firms in the economy which will use copper to make wires because that is the alternate use of copper. Now, in any economy, the availability of copper will be limited because it's a natural resource. Imagine that in an economy, every year they discover 100 grams of copper. Out of 100 grams of copper, some grams are going to go towards the money function of it, from which coins will be minted, and some aspect of copper is going to go towards making utensils and wires. Imagine we discovered one more additional use of copper now, right? It could be for copper plating of jewelry, or it could be for copper plating of watches. If one more use of copper is discovered in these economies, from the 100 grams of copper, imagine that normally 20 grams would go for making coins, while 80 grams would go for making utensils. They discovered one more use of copper and hence the demand for copper increased. They wanted more copper because now they have decided to go for copper plating of watches too for some reason. They require 90 grams of copper now. That means in this economy, only 10 grams of copper are going to be remaining for its use as money. That means in this economy, now the number of copper coins that this economy can make will be lesser. Previously, they had 20 grams of copper for money purposes. That means this economy every year would make at least 4 Ranchans. Since 1 Ranchan is 5 grams of copper, from 20 grams, they are going to make 5 Ranchans. Now, in this economy, when there are only 10 grams of copper left for making copper coins, and each copper coin is 5 grams of copper, that means in this economy, they can now make only 2 Ranchans, not 4, only 2. It has halved. As the economy grows, there will be more requirement of copper coins. But since copper has other uses also, you will have lesser copper available for making copper coins, which will be used as money. And in an economy where there are less copper coins and everybody wants these copper coins, quite obviously they will be willing to trade their produce for copper coins at a much cheaper price. That means that a mango seller, if a mango seller was selling 1 kg of mangoes to me for, let's say, 2 Ranchans, he wanted 2 Ranchans for 1 kg of mangoes. In this economy where the number of copper coins are lesser, he is also going to require copper coins because he wants to buy other things. He will be willing to give me 1 kg of mangoes, not for 2, but for 1 Ranchan. That means the purchasing power of ranchan is increasing. Previously, one ranchan is going to fetch me half a kg of mangoes. Now one ranchan, because ranchans are scarce, is going to get me 1 kg of mangoes. That means the purchasing power of these copper coins is going to rise. And when the purchasing power of the copper coins is going to rise, everybody in this economy would want to hoard more of these coins. They will be willing to not exchange it for other commodities. This is a problem. When the prices of mangoes are falling in comparison with the ranchans or copper coins here, everybody will see that their copper coins are now able to buy more. And they are going to wait till these copper coins are able to buy them pretty much everything. They're not going to be willing to shell these out because they realize that the purchasing power of their coins is increasing. So they are going to hold these. They're not going to use them for exchange purposes. And this is a problem. Similarly, the other way around can also happen. If the economies move away for utensils and wires, if they now want to make, let's say, utensils made of, let's say, mud or utensils made of wood, if they want to make wires made of other metals, that means the copper is now going to be only used for making coins. Imagine if there is no use of copper for utensils and wires, that means all the 100 grams of copper now is available for us to make money from. And in this case, 100 grams of copper is going to give you 25 ranchans. That means in this economy, the supply of copper coins has increased. Many people have extra copper coins on them, and they would want to exchange these copper coins for the limited produce that the economy produces. Like in this case, scarcity of copper coins drove the prices of other commodities down. In this case, the abundance of copper coins is going to drive the prices of other commodities up because everybody will be willing to chase other commodities and everybody has more money. There is more money chasing fewer goods and services. That means the value or the price of those fewer goods and services is going to increase, and that's a problem. So the problem with metallic coins and other metals was that they were scarce, but they were not predictably scarce, which meant that the purchasing power of the money made from other metals could vary significantly, or it could fluctuate wildly. There is a huge amount of volatility associated with the value of these coins. With gold, the alternate uses of gold are very, very limited. That means gold's only use is mostly to make coins from. Gold has very, very limited industrial uses, if any. You may be surprised because we are born in India, and in India, gold is regarded very valuable because gold goes in ornaments. But that is the case in only a few economies. Not every economy in the world values gold as much for ornament purposes, right, as India does. Normally, the industrial uses of gold are very, very, very limited, in fact, next to nothing. Which is why most of the gold which is available is going to be used only for money purposes alone. That means other alternate uses of gold are not going to have an impact or a significant impact on the value of gold coins as money. Which is what is said that gold was scarce, and it was predictably scarce, that its value would remain stable. It doesn't mean it will not change, but it will not vary wildly. That is not going to happen. Which is why gold was kept, or it became the most common form of metallic money. The problem with gold was that one, it is very, very scarce. Now that's a big, big problem. For any metal which has been chosen as money, its scarcity is both helpful, but its scarcity is also disastrous. Gold was very, 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 very scarce. Since gold was very scarce, as economies grew, trade is going to grow. As economies grow, population is going to grow. As economies grow, the requirement for gold coins is also going to grow. But since gold is very, very scarce, economies did not have enough gold to make gold coins. Therefore, they started resorting to this practice, which was called debasement of currency. So previously, if in this economy 1 ranchan meant 5 grams of gold, debasement would mean that you are not going to change the outer value of this money, you're only going to change the inner value of this money, which means that in this economy which is facing scarcity of gold, what they are going to do now is they are going to issue 1 ranchan, but 1 ranchan will have 2 grams of gold and 3 grams of copper. That means inside will be a layer of copper and it will be gold plated from the outside. But everybody in this economy is eventually going to know that the new ranchans which are issued are not the same as the previous ranchans. Previous ranchans were 5 grams of gold. The new ranchans are only 2 grams of gold and 3 grams of copper. One currency becomes good currency, the other currency becomes bad currency. And if you have both of these ranchans, this is ranchan old and this is ranchan new, you are not going to be willing to let go of the old ranchans because you know for a fact that they had 5 grams of gold and the new ranchans have only 2 grams of gold. This is called bad currency driving good currency away from circulation. People are going to hoard on this and they are not going to use them for trading purposes. This was a big problem in terms of economic activities in these economies because people are going to hoard the good currency. That means trade in this economy is going to suffer. They are not going to be willing to part with this good currency because they know that the other coins which are now being issued are bad currency. They don't have as much gold as the previous currency used to have. This was a major problem for gold. The other problem for gold was to ensure its safety and its security. Since gold is very, very scarce, gold is also very, very valuable. So if you are going to trade from one place to the other place, you are going to also have to keep it safe. And you can imagine, having to carry so many gold coins with you all the time. It is for you. You'll always be worried. How do you keep yourself safe? Because there may be attacks. There may be people who are going to be looting your gold away. So this was also a big problem. How was the problem of security solved? The problem of security solved was through goldsmiths. Now, goldsmiths were people who would mint these gold coins. These are the people who are going to convert gold into gold coins. But goldsmiths also offered what is called a vault service. That means they would have lockers with them. And if you wanted to keep your gold safe, you have to just go to the goldsmith, give him the gold. Imagine that you are person 1. You have some gold on you and you're not going to require all the gold. So you go to the goldsmith, you give him gold, and the goldsmith is going to issue to you a receipt. This receipt is going to be called a depository receipt. For example, you had 10 grams of gold and you wanted to keep it safe. You went to the goldsmith, you gave him 10 grams of gold, and he in exchange gave you a depository receipt which said that yes, you have submitted your 10 grams of gold with me. Much like you would do it, there would be another person 2, who has 100 grams of gold. And since he also wants to keep his gold safe, he is going to go to the goldsmith and he is going to give him 100 grams of gold. And the goldsmith in exchange is going to issue a depository receipt to him which says that yes, this person has deposited 100 grams of gold with me. Now imagine that these two people are the same people that we used in our examples previously. Which is to say that person 1 is the farmer and person 2 is the shoemaker. When person 1 wants to buy something from person 2, person 1 is going to go to person 2 and he is going to first go to the goldsmith, withdraw some of the gold by issuing the deposit receipt. He's going to go to the goldsmith and ask of him, you know what, I have deposited 10 grams of gold with you. I would require 2 grams of this gold back. Here is the depository receipt that you had issued previously. It says that I have deposited 10 grams of gold with you. Please give me 2 grams of gold and also renew my depository receipt. So the goldsmith is going to give him 2 grams of gold and issue a new depository receipt which now says that this person only has 8 grams of gold left with the goldsmith. Now this person takes the 2 grams of gold to person 2 and in exchange for the 2 grams of gold, he's going to get 1 shoe. He's a shoemaker and he's a farmer. He gets 1 shoe in exchange for 2 grams of gold. Now the 2 grams of gold are with person 2. He does not want to keep this gold on him. So what he's going to do is, he's going to go to the goldsmith and give him 2 more grams of gold. That keep it safe for me. And the goldsmith is going to issue him another deposit receipt which says, yes, you have deposited 2 more grams of gold with me. Now imagine, this is a highly inconvenient process. This could have also been done if person 1 went to person 2 and told him, you know what, I need a shoe. And the person 2 tells him, you know what, I need 2 grams of gold in exchange. Person 1 is going to issue to him a depository receipt, and depository receipt is going to go to person 2. Rather than going to the goldsmith and taking this hassle of going to the goldsmith, right? Rather than him first going to the goldsmith and withdrawing gold, then going to this person, buy an item by giving him gold, this person taking it back to the same goldsmith again and getting a deposit receipt. Isn't it much simple if this person straight up goes to this person and asks of him what he wants, and this person will tell him how much gold he wants? Only that person 1 is not going to give him gold, he's going to give him the depository receipt. Since the depository receipt is a valid claim on the gold kept with the goldsmith, it is as good as gold. If person 1 gives depository receipt of gold to person 2, person 2 can take this depository receipt to this goldsmith and withdraw gold in exchange. It's a much more convenient process. He does not have to worry about keeping his gold safe. He has to travel 10 kilometers taking all his gold to this person. In the middle there can be attacks. Much better way would be to just keep one deposit receipt in his pocket, go to this person, ask of him what you want, and in exchange give the deposit receipt. Since the deposit receipt is a valid claim of the gold of this person kept with the goldsmith, this person can use this deposit receipt and redeem it from the goldsmith in exchange for gold. These deposit receipts eventually became what is called paper currency, also called promissory notes. So from barter system, economies moved to commodity money. From commodity money, which could not solve 2 problems, one that of divisibility and that of perishability, we moved to a system of metallic money. In metallic money, many metals were used, but eventually gold became the most accepted metal as money. The problems with gold were twofold. One, that it was too scarce, and economies as they grow, as the trade volume grows, every economy is going to require more and more gold coins. And since there is not enough gold on the planet, these economies will start resorting to what is called a practice called debasement. And in debasement, the value of gold in every coin is going to be reduced, which is what is called the introduction of bad currency in an economy. And bad currency in an economy always drives out the old currency or the good currency in this economy. It affects trade. The second problem of gold is the need to keep it safe. Since gold is a very valuable commodity, you have to keep it safe, and that function was served by the goldsmiths. Now each person had to deposit, whenever he deposited the gold with the goldsmith, he was issued a receipt which is called the depository receipt by the goldsmith. All people, for them to keep their gold safe, they would go to the goldsmiths and they would avail what is called the vault service of the goldsmith. In exchange, the goldsmith is going to give them depository receipts. Now people very soon discovered that rather than me going to the goldsmith first and withdrawing some gold and then taking this gold to other people to buy goods and services, it's a much better thing and much more convenient, much more safer if I go to the other people and in exchange for gold, I give them deposit receipts only. Since deposit receipts are a valid claim on the gold kept with the goldsmith, quite obviously they are as good as gold. If he wants gold and not a deposit receipt, he can take this to the goldsmith and in exchange get the gold back. These deposit receipts eventually became promissory notes, which is what is called paper currency. So what you know of money today, which is currency, is only a specific type of money. And this was the evolution of paper money. From barter systems, which were non-monetized economies because there was no universal medium of exchange, to monetized economies. Monetized economies in the form of commodity money, then metallic money, and from metallic money you came down to paper currency. This is about the evolution of money, right? So what we have discussed up until now is the definition of money, the types of money, the functions of money, as well as the evolution of money. The remaining topics we are going to cover in our next class to follow. Thank you and all the best.
नवी व्यू सर बस ओबीएस से स्टॉप करो बाकी कहानी
अच्छा बस हो गया